content like this, be sure to subscribe to Mason Studios on YouTube.
Ooh, everybody doing good? Yeah. Everybody's excited. Well, I'm very excited because today we're going to be joined by the voice of Five Nights at Freddy's. So please join me in giving a huge welcome to Mr. Andy Field. Very good crowd. But, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's is apparently pretty popular, you know?
Yeah.
It's got one or two fans for sure. How are we doing today, Andy? Everything going good?
Man, I'm fantastic. Everything's great. It's a busy convention here at Jackson.
Very busy. West Tennessee's awesome. This is your first time at West Tennessee Comic Con?
Yeah, it is. I did Memphis last year, and it was not as busy. So, yeah.
No, we've got a really good turnout here, and it's a great show. Austin, that runs the show, by the way, really good guy. Runs some of the best shows in the industry, in my humble opinion. So anyway, he does a great job. But to get us started off, man, I want to kick it over to you first about how you initially got into voice acting, and just kind of give us some background on Mr. Andy.
I was a middle school teacher, and I was broke, and was looking for side hustles, and I was imitating the football stadium announcer in our town, and my wife said, "Oh my gosh, you should be an announcer guy." And I thought, I've always been a good public speaker, and I like talking, and I think I'd be good at that. Let's look into that. Maybe I could at least pay the electric bill. And so I got on the internet and got started. And like 3 years later, quit teaching, quit everything, just full-time voice actor. And that was not far from here. I was in Oxford, Mississippi when that happened. And I had just finished up teaching a year in Memphis at Bartlett, at Elmore Park Middle School in Bartlett.
Nice. Well, there you go. So, as far as getting a role in Five Nights at Freddy's, kind of walk us through what led up to that, and once you found out that you were going to be in this game series that's so popular, what was your initial gut reaction to finding that out?
So I was already a voice actor. I was already doing commercials and things, and I'd been in a couple little video games that nobody had ever heard of, and it was a slow day in our classroom. I don't know what goes on at school. I don't know, maybe the middle schoolers had to drive to an away game or something. That's ridiculous. But I had 5 kids left in class, and so we were doing nothing. And I was on my own computer doing my own thing, and I got the email that said, "You got a job. You booked a voiceover job." And I was like, "Great. Hey guys, I got a voiceover job." And they all knew I was a voice actor. So they're like, "That's cool." I said, "Oh, it's a video game." And they're like, "Oh, that is cool." I said, "You guys want to hear part of the script?" And they're like, "Yeah." And it was due to the unfortunate closing of Fazbear Pizza, and one of the kids went, "That's a Five Nights at Freddy's game." And I don't know what that means, but I know I better not read another word of this. And so I emailed the guy right away. The guy was Scott Cawthon, and I said, "Hey, just want to let you know I'm a middle school teacher. I just read some of this to my kids." And they knew that it was what was the name of it? Five Nights at what? And he's like, "Yeah, you can tell people you're in it, but only because it's in the script. But don't tell people what your role is." And I said, "Okay." And that's when it hit me a year later that a lot of the other voice actors didn't even know they were in Five Nights at Freddy's. Because, Kellen Kopp didn't know his character's name was Funtime Freddy until the game came out.
Right.
Because he doesn't say it. But I say my character's name on the first night. So it's kind of funny. That's how all that came about, is that my middle schoolers were the first ones to know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was aware of how popular the series was. My old job was I was a GameStop manager for a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I just remember the sheer amount of Five Nights at Freddy's merchandise that came through the store. So I was very aware of how popular the series was. And just to give you guys an idea how this is going to work here in a moment, I will open up the floor to all of your questions. That's what this mic in the middle is for. So first I'm going to go through a series of questions with Andy here, and then here in a moment I'll open it up. So go ahead and be thinking what questions you want to ask Andy about voice acting, Five Nights at Freddy's, just whatever. He's an open book, right?
Open book.
Open book. So another thing I want to ask you is the biggest difference between recording voiceover for a video game versus some of the other voice acting work, commercial voice acting and things like that. Is there a big difference between those?
Surprisingly, there's not, because acting is acting, and you have to reading someone else's words and making other people think they're your words is the hardest part of all acting. Commercials tend to be shorter, so that's probably the biggest difference. You might just say Frigidaire, save $800, and that's it. That's all you say. But you have to sound convincing when you say that. So there's a difference. But a lot of voice acting for video games, some of it's equally short. You do one of these little, games that come out of China, and your character only has 3 lines.
Right.
You know, it's like you're the knight. Stand behind me, and that's the whole thing. That's if anybody plays Top Heroes, I'm the knight that says stand behind me. You know, lift your shield, and that's it. That's all you get. You know, it's like you click on your character and you get like the little activation line. But the bigger video games that are more cinematic, like Five Nights at Freddy's and like, you know, Call of Duty, where there's all those scenes that are really more like watching a movie, that's vastly different than commercial work just because of the length of it and having to maintain, you know, there's a lot more rehearsal that goes into that, I think, than commercials. But,
yeah, do you have, of course, obviously you voice a lot of characters, but is there one, and this may be a difficult question because I guess it's sort of like picking a favorite child, is there one specific character you voiced in your career that's like a favorite?
Dispatch.
Dispatch, there you go.
Not just in Five Nights at Freddy's games, but in any game ever that I've ever done, it's Dispatch. And part of that is, well, like all the other games, there's a lot of lines, but Dispatch is conversational. He sounds human and not like an announcer or like a robot voice. And so Dispatch, that was really the fun challenge of sounding real. And I don't know that I always nailed it, but I thought I did pretty good throughout the game. And that was one of the few times where the Steel Wool guys from Five Nights at Freddy's were on the line with me. So we got to interact and laugh with each other and say, oh, I don't know how, you know, they would change lines on the spot, you know, and there were times where I'd say, you know, I think maybe we ought to say it this way. And so it was just a lot more fun to put into that. But Dispatch is a great character. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Completely oblivious to the fact that you're going to die, just like the rest of Fazbear Entertainment. But still, that's the hilarity of the whole thing, I think.
Right. Do you have, throughout all the voice recording sessions, I always like to ask this as a filmmaker because I'm big on like direction and the direction you give actors and that sort of thing. Is there a specific piece of direction that you remember a director's given you that either was strange or unusual or weird, or maybe even it could be like the best piece of direction that you've ever gotten from a director?
Well, I'll tell you the worst.
There you go. Hey, that's something.
The worst ones are, a lot of times you get somebody from another country and they know just enough English to communicate with you, but not really enough English to communicate well. And they'll be like, we would like more acting. I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know how to act more than I'm acting. Does that mean you want to sound more authentic or less authentic? Because a lot of times young people say, that sounds like you're voice acting. And what that means is, I don't believe you. That doesn't sound authentic. You know, it's we would like more acting. That's always, I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, they're not able to direct the nuance. It sounds like if they're not able to speak English.
Right, but a lot of and you know, some directors will just like say how they want the line to sound. But then other directors will go in and say, what I'd like you to do here is imagine that the person you're talking to is on your nerves. And so that completely changes the way you deliver that line, you know. But typically, a good director will say, hey, just give me three. Give me 3 takes of that, and especially for one line. And then if you're a good enough voice actor, the goal is to give them 3 that are so good they don't know which one they like the best. But often you give them 3, and they definitely like one of them, and the other 2 are just like junk, you know. So.
For sure. And when you're doing these different characters and things, obviously you have to display different emotions. Sometimes you may have to be angry or sad or funny or excited or whatever. How do you as an actor get into those emotions for those characters? Is there like a method you have for that?
I think like acting 101 is, even if you can't relate to what the character's doing, you can find something in your own experience that conjures up that same emotion. And an example I like to use a lot lately is I played a gay dad in a PSA for anti-bullying. And you know, the guy's kids were getting made fun of at school because he had 2 dads, right? Well, I'm not gay. I don't know that I even have friends that are 2 gay dads, but I've had my kids hurt at school, and I've heard from my kids, and so I can pull that up. And you know, so then when you're talking about that line in the commercial where you're saying, you know, and it's just not right or whatever, I don't remember even what the lines were, but you were able to pull up that almost crying feel of just, you know, when your own little child that you just can't do anything about, you know, no matter what their situation is. So that's really the case for all acting. You know, if you're really mad about something, then find something that you really were mad about in your life and that kind of stuff. But like in the Five Nights at Freddy's, that's never really been a challenge because it's always like a computer guide voice.
Right.
But in Secret of the Mimic, there's that one part, and I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the endings, it gets a little chilling, and then it's really more, it wasn't anger, it was hatred. there's this moment where you realize, oh, this character isn't just oblivious and friendly to me. He hopes I die. And then that's a whole different feeling. When the veil is lifted and you could just say, you've made your choice. And it's just like...
Yeah, so I also know you've done some live action work as well in acting, and I watched one interview, because obviously I do my research before I do these things.
Yeah.
And so I know there was one interview you did. You were talking about being an extra on, I think it was NCIS, if I'm not mistaken.
I was an extra on NCIS New Orleans.
Yeah.
It was the first time I was an extra, and when I started voice acting, I signed up for every website I could find. I mean, it was just with this laser focus. I was up until midnight every night. And they called me and they said, hey, would you like to come down and be a special agent on NCIS New Orleans tomorrow? And I said, I've made it. I've made it. I didn't realize it was an extra. And I went down there, and I mean, I spent more money than I made.
Oh, yeah.
And the food was great. And I thought, I'm never going to be an extra again. And then I was an extra again on The Walking Dead and on Avengers Endgame. But that was just because I was a fan. You know, I would go be an extra on...
What was that like, the experience of being on the Endgame set? I mean,
it was hot. It was 3 days in the Atlanta heat outside. It was hot. I got a little blurry. I'm behind Robert Downey Jr. in one scene.
Hey, that's something. That's something.
I like to say I'm Soldier 290.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. That's more than most of us can say. I've never been in a Marvel movie.
Yeah, it was fun.
I got to ask, as the guy who is the voice of Five Nights at Freddy's, what is your take on the live action movies?
I think
two movies so far.
They're fun, and I talk to the fans a lot about this too. I think the movies are very fun. I thought they were great, and I'm an old Star Wars fan from long ago, so some of the older people in here will relate to this too. Look, some of you have problems with it. Just pretend like you're 12 and go have fun watching it. Eat the popcorn, you know.
Turn your brain off.
It's like Star Wars. I'm like, you're going to be so much. They're going to hit each other with light swords, and they're going to use the Force, and there's going to be spaceships. It's going to be great. You know, don't get too hung up on the lore or the plot. But they did have to take a lot of liberties with the movies, and it seems like they're moving a little faster with the movies than they are with the games. You know, we finished movie 2, but I think we're past game 2, if I'm not. In fact, I think we saw Circus Baby in the second movie, which was kind of cool because that's from game 5, which I'm in. Yeah, so that would be cool. So.
They're teasing some stuff.
Yeah.
I love I haven't actually seen the second one yet. I've got to get around to that, but I love the first one. I actually thought the first one was really, really well done.
I thought the second one was better. So that was,
Oh, well, there you go. Now I definitely got to check it out.
Well, that was more fun. I mean, better is subjective. But video game movies are notoriously bad, and I thought these were not as. They weren't anywhere near as bad as know some other video game movies that have happened.
Well, that's why I go to the movies. I go to the movies to have fun and for the escapism of it. It's not so much. I'm not going there for Shakespeare like I think some people. Some people go to it for. So, but are there any characters that you haven't voiced yet that you would like to?
I mean, you mean in Five Nights at Freddy's or anything?
Just in general, anything. I think Five Nights at Freddy's too, but it could be anything.
If I could be a Disney villain, I would die happy. That would be, that would be incredible, you know. And I get those Disney auditions every now and then. Disney does but for their villains, they're going to cast an A-lister, you know.
Right.
They're big names, you know, like James Woods in Hercules and that kind of stuff. They're not going to.
But Andy, you are an A-lister, though.
I kind of divide the list up. A-listers are people who you know, like by name, and then like B-listers are like if you were like to say who they played, you would know. And then C-listers, like even then, that's me. Like nobody knows Andy Field, but if you said Andy Field, the voice of Five Nights at Freddy's, there still would be a lot of people that didn't know. Right. But then there is a fandom, so that's I think that's the C-list.
Right.
That's my own personal definition of lists.
So throughout the career, you've obviously worked with a lot of different talented actors and people. Is there anybody specifically you've worked with that? Obviously, you already said you sort of worked with Robert Downey Jr. on Endgame. I mean, you're in a scene with him technically, so there's that. Is there anybody that stands out that you really enjoyed working with?
I don't do much with the talent. Usually, it's just all by yourself at home. And even the Disney nowadays, they're recording really by themselves. But the directors at Steel Wool they were world-class directors, really, really good. And so I like working with them. And if I said Jason Topolsky, nobody would be like, oh, J-Top. But yeah, those directors were fantastic. But I really don't work with other voice actors a ton. Usually we see the final product and we all go, dude, you were good. Oh, dude, you were good too. Right. Well done. It's rare.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably don't because you obviously have to put on the character. But has there been any point where you're just out in public and you've been recognized for your voice?
It's very rare. It's very rare. We call that in the wild. It's very rare to get recognized in the wild. I got recognized at the Dollar General in Abbeville, Mississippi, which is Abbeville, maybe population 150. I mean, it's really. And the dude was like, "Wait a minute, I think I know you." I said, "I don't think you know me." He says, "I think you're popular." I said, "I don't think I am." And he pulls up my Instagram. I said, "Yeah, that's me." So
he's like, "Yeah, that's me."
And that's, I don't know, that probably happens about once a year or maybe, It happens more in my hometown because I've gone and spoken at the university. And so the young people in town kind of know that I live there and they'll, the hardware store usually, but I think 3 or 4 of them work there. And so so they all, when I walk in, there he is.
There he is. It's that Five Nights at Freddy's guy. Yeah.
Take a lot of pictures in the hardware store.
How often do you just pick up the games and play them? Is that something you do from time to time?
I don't game a lot because I'm old. I mean, I'm in my 50s, but
That's not old. That's young.
I am currently playing Security Breach, and when I say currently playing, I mean I played it a few days ago and got further than I've ever gotten, and now I'm mad at it and probably won't play it again. But because I'm old, I'm not patient enough to play games that you have to figure out.
Right.
I mean, shoot 'em up games, those are good. I figured it out. I'm just bad at it. But Five Nights at Freddy's just like, how do I? Oh, God, you got me again. How do I do this? I finally got past Montgomery Gator and Security Breach the other day, and I got all the way to Moon, and I hate Moon, and I basically have rage quitted because of Moon. So there you go.
There you go. Well, all right, guys. Well, now it is going to be your turn to start asking Andy some questions. So don't be shy. Feel free to start lining up at this mic here. You can ask Andy any question you got. Anything at all. Well, while we're waiting on them to line up, I will ask you if you could give some advice. This is a common voice actor question. If you had any advice for anybody who's trying to become a voice actor, what would you say to them?
I actually have a whole page on my website.
There you go.
Like how to get started. And I'm easy to find. I mean, if you're looking at me on social media, the link in my bio always takes you to my website. But it's andyfieldvoiceover.com. But there's a whole page of and it's kind of the mechanics of getting started. Take some acting lessons. Here's a recommended microphone. Here are some places where you can go to practice and all that kind of stuff too. But acting lessons is kind of important for most of us. I mean, there are actors out there that never took acting lessons. But those are not the people that, if you have never acted before, you should be comparing yourself to. Like I've heard people say, well, Brad Pitt didn't take acting lessons. You're going to compare yourself to an Oscar winner from the get-go? Like you haven't even started? Brad Pitt's unusual among the Oscar winners. So that's just rare. Tom Cruise has dyslexia. Well, that's Tom Cruise. Come on. He's legendary, right? If you're a young person, I would say be a reader. Being a good reader makes you better at everything in the world. And acting involves a lot of reading. And, it's like you have to read somebody else's words and then make them sound like they're your word. And if you're struggling with the reading of it, that's just one more step that you've got to fight through, is figuring out what these words are supposed to sound like when you say them. So.
Were there any actors as you're growing up that you kind of looked up to or aspired to be like, whether it was a voice actor or just an on-screen actor?
No, because I didn't think I was ever going to be an actor. I was in my 40s. I didn't even know there was acting and voice acting. I just wanted to pay my electric bill. But as a kid, man, Harrison Ford, he was one of my favorites because he was on Solo and Indiana Jones. He was way up there. He's probably my favorite actor as a kid, for sure. Yeah. That was it. Come on, guys. Come ask me a question.
Come on. Don't be shy.
Here she comes. Do it.
Come on up.
Do it.
Do it.
So I have a question. Whenever working on the Five Nights at Freddy's voice acting, I think we're this question is more specifically about Central Location. How was the communication with Scott Cawthon? Did you have much communication or no?
Scott is the best director ever because he goes, I want him to sound like this. And then I sent him 3 takes and he's like, I like the 3rd one. And then I recorded it. What? Okay, so also I was pretty new to voiceover and this one paid more than I was used to getting paid and I was a little nervous about it. And so he said, if you have any questions, just call me at this number. So I called him and I was like, hey, this is Andy Field. Just want to make sure, this is kind of how you want him to sound. It seems you had, he's like, yeah, sounds great. And then I recorded it all and sent it and he said, thanks. And that was it. Rarely he might send an email back that says, can you do this one line this way. And that's because he keeps all the context from us. And so he kind of knows the context. He's like, yeah, this line just isn't going to go right unless he does it that way. But typically, Scott just trusts you and says, that was great, which is wonderful, because some directors will come back and nickel and dime you. You know, they'll be like, can you say the second syllable of this word with this pronunciation, you know? And I'm just like, you're going to kill us with a 10-minute script here, you know? So Scott is very easygoing. The Steel Wool guy is a little more direction, but like when we do it live, it's so much fun with them. And maybe they'll do a line read for you and say, make it sound like this, or maybe they'll say, now make it a little more sarcastic, or dial the sarcasm up even more, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, Scott he's so easy. You just email it to him and he said, thanks.
Can I ask a second question?
Sure, there's nobody in line.
Oh, yeah. So, you know how you said you originally picked up teaching? Why did you originally do teaching?
I just always liked kids, and I kind of like the noble calling of teaching. Now, why did I leave? All of that kind of gets buried by terrible admonition. And the kids are fantastic. The adults are pretty awful. And so that's, you know, there you go. I don't want to go too much into what's wrong with American education. But
It's funny, that was also my experience in schools. The kids are great, and the adults are
I taught middle school, and people are like, ooh, yikes, middle school. I'm like, 12-year-olds are the best. They're weird. They're in the middle. They're trying to figure out if they're a kid or an adult and trying to figure out their life. But man, they're fun. So, good question.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
Now there's a line. You encouraged people. Good for you.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you go first.
If you were in Poppy Playtime, a voice actor, who would you voice act?
I don't know anything about Poppy Playtime, except I was at Comic-Con last weekend and met a girl, and I didn't even know she was in Poppy Playtime cosplay until her mom commented on TikTok and said, our daughter was the one in the Poppy Playtime cosplay. So I would be that clown, because it's the only character I know. It's a great character, great question. I know the FNAF fans love Poppy Playtime, though. I should at least look at it.
Were you ever contacted to do a role in either of the Five Nights at Freddy's movies, and would you like to do a role in the third?
So I live in Louisiana, and the movies were filmed in New Orleans. So all the A-listers are Hollywood people, but all the minor speaking roles are cast locally. So I contacted my Baton Rouge agent, and I contacted the casting agency in New Orleans, and I said, hey, I'm the guy, the voice of the video games. It would be really cool if I were in the movies. Everybody would like that. And they said, cool. So I got auditions for 3 parts in the first movie, and I didn't get any of them. And I got an audition for the waiter in the second movie, and that scene got cut anyway, even though I didn't get it. But I've met the dude who got it. So back to the first movie. So I auditioned for the dad in the dream sequence. And then they gave me the audition for the lawyer, Doug. And even when I read it, I thought, this is not me. But you just don't tell your agent, I'm not doing it. Like, this isn't for me. But Doug, that dude was perfect. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Doug with the jowls. He was scared of everything. You know, and like the specs were like, this guy, Doug is the biggest loser in the world, right? And I was like, that's not me. So I was like, I'm gonna, you know, I bought some clothes that didn't fit right and tied a tie poorly, and you know, I like scruffed out my beard a lot and like tried to grow out the dad ring of hair, but you know, you're not gonna get an audition for how you look. And then it was just, but the role that I thought I was gonna get was the cab driver. And that was kind of the one they thought of for me. And it was really cool. And then I knew I didn't get it. And then in the trailer, I saw Corey Kenshin was the cab driver. So I emailed him. I was like, Corey, congrats, man. I auditioned for that too. And he was like, oh, I didn't audition.
Oh, no.
I was like, you suck. That's what 10 million YouTube followers will get you as a part of the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. So same with Matt Pat. You know, I don't think Matt Pat auditioned for that either. But yeah, so I auditioned for those 3, but didn't get them. But that's, you know, everybody's like, I can't believe you didn't get it. Well, I mean, I'm kind of entry level on camera roles. Like you know, if somebody were looking at my audition, they'd probably say, oh, I've got a lot of advice for you. But
yeah, but you're the voice. They got to get you in the next movie, right?
No,
Y'all see him in Five Nights at Freddy's.
That'd be great.
Right?
That'd be fun. That would be fun. It would be, and, you know, and of course, nobody's entitled to any of that, so I'm just happy to be part of what I'm a part of.
Right.
But yeah, it's all good. Oh, hi.
Yeah. Hello. Special appearance by random gentleman. Yeah.
I stumbled during that answer because there was a lady in the back holding up a phone facing me, and it was my wife. She's filming me with.
Oh, there you go.
She's gone. She's gone, but I'm like, I thought she was showing me the phone, like. All right, next question.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for your question.
Hi. is there a certain character within any of the Five Nights at Freddy's games you would really love to play?
That I love to play? Dispatch is my favorite character I've ever done, but...
Would there be one that you would love to play
Oh.
within the main cast?
Oh, dude, I wanted Mr. Hippo so bad. I auditioned for him. I auditioned for Mr. Hippo. And see, Joe Gaudette and I were already talking at that point. Joe had made friends with me because he had already booked Rockstar Foxy and Funtime Foxy. And so Joe was like, oh, dude, so we were friends. And I'm like, but I know more about Five Nights at Freddy's than Joe because I've been in this for a couple games already, right? So I'm like, I bet Mr. Hippo has a dark past. What I didn't realize was that in Ultimate Custom Night, nobody had a dark past. They were all just funny characters, right? So I made Mr. Hippo a lot darker and sad. Like when he killed you, it was like, you've met a terrible demise, you know? But no, Mr. Hippo is so freaking funny. And I mean, he would be even funnier if he were Southern. You know what I mean? If you don't know Mr. Hippo, he rambles. Okay, so let me shorten it. So in the Ultimate Custom Night, every time you get killed by somebody, they give you a little catchphrase, and then the game's over and it reboots, right? Not Mr. Hippo. He gives you a 5-minute rambling monologue, and he sounds like an old man, and you can't click out of it. And if you shut the game off and turn it back on, it resumes with Mr. Hippo's monologue. You can't escape him. And he's like, my friend, you have met a terrible, terrible demise. I don't feel too bad about it, though. If it weren't for me, it'd just be one of these other fellows. It was like I was telling my friend Orville the other day. Orville and I were having a picnic, and Orville was having pastrami on rye, and I was drinking an Arnold Palmer, which is half sweet tea and half... You ever had an Arnold Palmer? Imagine if he was Southern. We all know that guy. It's like I was telling Orville. Orville and I was having a picnic the other day. That would be so fun. I was drinking Arnold Palmer. I would love Mr. Hippo. He's my favorite.
Are you like up to date with like FNAF lore, FNAF ships, or like fan theories and stuff?
I am more up to date than any other 55-year-old in the world, but less than any of you. But I don't really follow the ships or anything like that at all. But I know a good bit about the lore, and I'm definitely tracking all the announcements and stuff. Like they've teased 2 new games, so I'm on board with all that. But no, I'm not. The ships kind of freak me out. So.
Is there like any theory that you saw like fans made that like you really liked?
Matt Pat is an absolute genius. And there are geniuses, and when I say I mean a literal genius. Like there are geniuses out there doing genius things. You know, they're trying to cure cancer and they're, splitting the atom. But not many of them are doing fan theories of video games. And Matt Pat was such a genius, not only in how he put the theories together, but how he put his channel together and his whole format. And when he came out with that theory about sister location, about that, nobody had anything close to that theory at that point. Like Valora was a mom of this family that had been killed. Like that whole thing. And everybody was like, as soon as he gave the theory, we were all like, how did none of us see this? Like it was right under our nose. And Scott Cawthon even said, you're not 100% right, but you're a lot right. And that's, for Scott Cawthon to say anything is, Matt Pat, dude. So that whole theory of sister location, of that being a family that was killed, is pretty cool. That's why Valora's songs were so sad.
Thank you.
That's why he got a role in the movie.
What was your favorite part of FNAF Secret of the Mimic?
Oh, I think I like the Parachute EXE ending the best. But if you haven't gotten to that one, I don't want to spoil it, but it's pretty chilling. But I do like Dispatch's obliviousness through the whole thing. Like, how did it go in there? And Arnold's like, I almost died. It's awesome to hear. Anyway, so the next thing, I do like that level of humor. And Mr. Helpful, he's hilarious. Jim Meskimen did a great job on those roles, too. So Secret of the Mimic, maybe, I think, is the funniest game to have come along. It's pretty good. Good question. Welcome back.
So I have a question. So, like, are you going to be in, like, any of the future games, or, like, do you want to be in any of the future games?
I will be in every game that they ask me to be in, but I don't know. But even if I knew, I couldn't say that I knew. So
There's a thing out there that's called NDAs.
Yeah, non-disclosure agreements.
Yeah.
I will say this. I don't know. But if I didn't know, I would also say I don't know. But I'm telling you for real, I don't know. Like one time I was at Anime Week in Atlanta, and this was after Sister Location, and the fans were like, we read a panel, it was me, Heather Masters, and Kellen Goff. Heather Masters plays Circus Baby. And they were like, do you guys know about any other games coming up? And we said, we don't know. But even if we didn't know, we couldn't say. Well, Heather and I knew, we had already recorded our parts, but Kellen didn't know. He had not recorded his. And like a month later, Kellen messaged me and said, hey dude, I hate to break it to you, but there's another game coming out in a minute. I said, yeah, Heather and I already recorded 2 months ago. So, but I don't know. I legit don't know right now. For real, don't know.
Hey, for real.
But they have teased 2 new games. Security Breach 2 and FNAF World 2. Who didn't know? Raise your hand if you didn't know that they had teased those. Oh yeah, that's big news in the FNAF community. Yeah, the teaser FNAF World 2 was like a big numeral 2 with characters from FNAF World in it. Like really famous. It's kind of cool looking. Hi. Hello.
Out of the main 4, which one is your favorite?
Out of the main 4? I haven't played the main 4 enough, but I'm gonna say 4 because it's the scariest one. And it is pretty scary. Because it's set in a kid's nightmares instead of in a pizzeria. Which really, everybody in here, regardless of age, the scariest you've ever been is when you were like 12 in your own bedroom at night. Just that one night, you know.
And out of Foxy, Chica, Freddy, and Bonnie, who's your favorite?
Bonnie. That's why I knew you were missing my favorite one when you said that. Bonnie's my favorite just because he looks cool. He's just, I don't know, there's something about the way that rabbit's drawn that's cool. And then all the Bonnie variants, of course. You got Springtrap and all that are variants on the Bonnie model.
Do you think you could ever voice a version of Bonnie?
Oh yeah, I think I could voice a version of Bonnie. I would love to hear well, you know, there was a voice of Bonnie in the movie. And I think he just sounded kind of like MatPat. Because it's MatPat's voice, and it's just like, Bonnie, you know, he's just a guy. But I would love to see what Scott's directions were like. What do we want Bonnie to really sound like? That would be cool. Because he's really never had a voice.
And you guys, I'll keep asking questions, but feel free to line up at any time. Y'all can ask any question y'all want. So we got one right here. Yeah.
I should have just sat right there and answered.
Well, we need everybody to
so
hear.
Close.
Yeah, my question was, are you willing to be a voice actor teacher? Since you was a teacher.
Yeah, I used to have a class. It was called The Business of Voiceover. And, you know, I was like, I'm not an acting coach. I think I'm probably okay at it now. But at the time, starting in about 2017, Chuck Huber and I started a voiceover class together. Chuck Huber is in Dragon Ball Z and a couple other things. He's Dr. Frankenstein. And I don't know much about anime, but I know Chuck Huber is big in anime. And he and I realized we didn't know anything about what each other were talking about. Like, I knew how to run a voiceover business, and he knew how to be in Dragon Ball Z and the big stuff. And so we started a class, and every Tuesday night we met for about an hour and a half and just got people started as voice actors. And I'd say 10% of those students have gone on to be okay. In fact, I'm trying, sooner or later I'm gonna sit down and build another class with one of my former students who was also one of my college friends, and we're just gonna put it online where we don't have to teach it live, but people can just pay to get online and take it. But most of it was not how to act, but how to get your voice acting business off the ground. You know, you got to go figure out how, you know, what I'm going to teach you about how to act is go take acting lessons. You know, you need to go do that. That's part of this for sure. You must do this. And it's not for me, but go do this. You know. And I'll say this, you can go to voice acting conferences, which are a big deal. The nearest one to here is VO Atlanta. It's the biggest one in the country. And then you could go to like Comic Cons, and a lot of times you'll get a thing where you get to stand up and read in front of a coach or in front of a voice actor, and they'll give you some feedback, and then you read it again, and they go, everybody give them a big hand, and they sit down. But you don't get a whole lot out of that. I mean, because we can't spend all day with just getting you better, right? Like, you'll get up and you'll read, it seems you had some trouble with the keypad. And I'll say it with a little bit more smile on your voice. And you'll say it again, and I'll say, everybody give him a big hand, even if it sucked, right? Because it's Comic-Con, not a voiceover class, right? So you know, I'll go to a voiceover conference, and there's 50 to 150 people sitting in a room ready to read in front of the legendary Joe Cipriano. Joe Cipriano, you've definitely heard his voice. If you're old like me, he was the voice of like must-see TV back in the 70s. You know, like Tonight on the Cosby Show. You know, that guy. And but even Joe, you read once and maybe it's bad, and he says, do it this way, and you read it again and maybe it's bad, and he goes, all right, give him a big hand. Who's next? And that's at a voiceover conference. Like, we're, you know, you got to sit down one-on-one with somebody and get a lesson. You know, and it's hard because you thought you were good. You always think you're good, and they go, and your coach goes, I hated that, and let me tell you why. And you're like, oh, okay. You know, that's awful. But they really pull a lot out of you anyway.
What would you say is the biggest and most important thing that somebody who's trying to get into voice acting should focus on besides the acting? Like, should they focus more on their resume, on the networking side of it? I mean, what's like the most critical aspect?
It's the acting side of it. You've got to be able to convincingly say something. Like, one of the favorite things that voice acting coaches like to say is, "I didn't believe you," right? And it's like, you've got to be able to convince whoever's listening, the audience, that those are your words, that you were real. And really, nowadays, authentic conversational reads are really what we hear in so many commercials. To be a commercial for, let's say, Jackson, Tennessee, and it's just some guy's voice in the background or girl's voice in the background just saying, it's really a great place right out there in the middle of West Tennessee. And you're just saying it like you were just talking to your bro at a barbecue. It's not like Jackson, Tennessee, the heart of West Tennessee. There's still room for all of that. But
somebody from Jackson's going to hire him.
But lots of people can do that. It's the talking authentically, and you've got to get that, and it's so hard to do. And so that's number one. And once you can do that, then it's easy to get into the places where people are asking for auditions and deliver one convincingly. But even then, probability is not on your side. There may be 50 people who are good who audition.
Right.
So you've got a 2% chance if there's only 50.
What are some of the, obviously, we've talked a lot about Five Nights at Freddy's, but you've obviously done other work. What are some other characters that you've done the voice of that you're really...
Last year, I was in the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer video game.
And that's cool.
And I played King Moonracer from the Island of Misfit Toys, and we all had to voice match, and so that was a pretty good one. And somebody today at this con came up with a drawing of King Moonracer and Hand Unit from Five Nights at Freddy's that I autographed.
That's pretty dope.
So, but a lot of people are like, "Wait, you're in that? That seems like it's way too old." I'm like, "Yeah, it came out like 6 years before I was born." But the video game, and it's a terrible game. The reviews are not kind to the game, but it's very, very cute. If you like Christmas and you like Rudolph, it's definitely worth $25 for your Switch game or whatever. But you'll hear me as King Moonracer. He's kind of a jerk, King Moonracer.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Everybody in that movie's a jerk. Santa Claus is a jerk in that movie.
It was in the olden days,
right?
They made that. Yeah.
It's like, unlike playthings, a living creature cannot hide himself away on an island. And you feel like Rudolph should say, "What about you, Moonracer? You're on the island."
I'm not gonna lie; those movies kind of scared me a little bit as a kid. There's something about that animation style.
My wife did.
Freaked me out a little bit.
My mom didn't like it, and so we didn't watch it a lot. But then in the past few months, there's a video game, a Souls-like game called Crystalla. It's all cats, so the combat's really cool because they're cats, so it's like parkour. It's real agile looking stuff. And I'm one of the quest-giving characters in that. I'm a chef, a cat chef. And when I auditioned for that, they wanted everybody to have like these Scandinavian accents or British accents or whatever, and I'm not good at that. But I thought, he's a chef, he would probably have a terrible French accent. And that's what I did, and I got cast with it. So sometimes taking a risk will get you a cool part. So,
well, we also talked about your favorite role to play, but do you have a role that was like the most challenging voice role that you had to do? Maybe something that really stretched your vocal cords to the limit,
Yeah, there's a lot of them that really wear your voice out. Like the pirate in Five Nights at Freddy's, the pirate captain, because once you've gone, "No parties," like 20 times, that really tears it up out of the end, So that's anything growly or harsh, or, sometimes they'll have like a monster, you have something like where you're like, and all that. I did zombies for the video game Contagion, and that was a lot of, and so that was, you're pretty raw after that. So.
Is that one of those situations where like you have somebody on the other side listening in? Do you make those noises?
Oh, my wife was scared to death, but that was like my first voiceover gig, and I was in my walk-in closet, and I was a teacher, so it was like 12 o'clock at night that I'm doing that, and we were big Walking Dead fans at the time, and so all of this was just straight out of Walking Dead. It was all like, and dude, it was like pages of this spreadsheet of like, we need 3 different sounds of zombie getting hit with blunt object that need to be between 0.5 and 1 second apiece. 3 different ways a zombie getting hit with a bat. Not in the head, like it's like, we need 2 different zombie burning 2 seconds. 2 seconds is a long time to go. And it's just, but it was really, I had never seen that, and really never have since. Just long, spreadsheets of we need 3 of these that need to be this length and all that. And
I feel like you could get real creative with that though, with the zombies. Voices like
you kind of run out of stuff, you know. It's,
Well, versus like traditional voice lines that are just they're written a certain way, but if they're just saying like, "Hey, this zombie's getting hit a certain way," you have I feel like a little more creative freedom. Just kind of do whatever.
It's like
you know.
if you do three zombie getting shot in the head, I mean, it can only go so many ways. You know?
Right.
Let me hear your best zombie idling. Let's hear it.
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Idling, just standing there. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I'm a filmmaker, so maybe I've had some practice.
If you just picture in the game, there's a zombie standing there, and they kind of make him move a little bit. So, and it's just kind of idling. That was one of the.
Yeah. No, I think I would have fun with that. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so whenever you first started out voice acting and getting into it, like, how exactly did you get into it? Like, what?
Oh, that's a good question. So I went to Google and I was like, how do you become like an announcer guy? Like, I didn't even know what it's called. And at the time, there was a website that really dominated the Google search results called voices.com. And they're not the most respected website in the voiceover industry. In fact, they're kind of hated among the pros. But I got on voices.com. And they had a $10 initial first month membership fee, and then it was $40 a month after that. And I didn't know how I was going to afford that $10, but I did it. And I mean, I didn't book anything for like 3 months, but I probably auditioned until 1 in the morning. I probably did 200 auditions the first month. And I was so bad. I did not even know, like I bought an interface and I had a microphone left over from when I was in a rock band in college. And I didn't know for the first month that interface didn't even work with my computer. And I had been recording through the built-in mic on the side of my computer the whole time. And it sounded like I was in a tin can. I didn't even know, because my headphones weren't any good either. And so, but what I did get experienced at was recording an audio file, saving it, naming it, uploading it, sitting, just that whole flow of doing all that. And so it took another couple of months, and I was looking everywhere. I found a gig on Craigslist that paid me maybe $40, and a guy wanted affirmations to listen to in the gym. And so like for $40, I recorded like 4 or 5 minutes of me saying things like, "You are a very handsome man. In the gym, no one can lift more weight than you. At parties, ladies think you are hilarious." This dude, I can just picture this guy in the gym. That's right. That's right. No, I didn't know what he looked like. I cannot imagine he was a very handsome man.
So, have you ever lost your voice while voice acting?
Yeah, I have, and I lose it a lot at Comic-Cons, and then have to go home Monday and kind of not do anything. But like right now, I'm kind of pushing hard into this mic because I feel like it's not picking me up that well. But yeah, you get over here. Yeah, good. But yeah, like sometimes I'll go home from a con and I'm just my vocal cords are just worn out. I'm just talking the whole day. I'm going, "What's your favorite Five Nights at Freddy's game?" to everybody I meet.
So,
you do have a line.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, guys, we will probably cut off after this gentleman in the black T-shirt right here. We only got time for a couple more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched any of the Let's Players react to your voice lines?
Yes, dude. Corey is the funniest by far. I mean, Corey cracks me up, and he's just mad at Dispatch. Like he's, I hope I meet this guy someday. But then Dawko cracks me up because we've talked before, and he just, when he's talking about the game, he refers to the character as me. He's like, "So Andy told us to get the data diver," and I'm like, "His name is Dispatch. I'm just the actor that plays him." So they're hilarious, but all those guys just crack me up because Dispatch and Hand Unit and all the units are just funny anyway. So it's funny to listen to those guys.
Is there a favorite line that you've said?
I would say, and we're going to go back to Sister Location because it's what kicked all this off, and it's not Exotic Butters. Although that one is funny, I think Eggs Benedict is my favorite line from that because we didn't know there was going to be a running gag, right? And that was the first night of the running gag. And when your name gets auto-corrected to Eggs Benedict, that first reaction from all those YouTubers, I'm just like, okay, this game is going to be funny. It's already been a little funny, but when it says, "It seems you had some trouble with the keypad. I see what you were trying to type, and I will auto-correct it for you." one moment, welcome, X Benedict. And you're like, no, that's not my name, right? That's a good one.
Hello.
Do you have a favorite game or horror game that's not Five Nights at Freddy's?
Well, Contagion was pretty good, and it never really got real popular, but I loved the zombie aspect of it. It was really dark, and I thought they did a lot of really cool details. Like, you know, it's a first-person game, so you don't know what you look like, except there's this one scene where you go through a bathroom and there's a mirror, and you can look over there and you're in it. And I'm like, they didn't have to put a mirror. They didn't even have to put a bathroom, you know? It was like, you know, I play Walking Dead and there's mirrors on the wall, and you don't see yourself in the mirror on the wall.
That's also surprisingly, in video games, it's surprisingly challenging for developers to put mirrors on, if y'all know that or not.
It's very much.
So, yeah.
Walking Dead, I changed my mind. Walking Dead. I have Walking Dead on the PlayStation VR. Saints and Sinners. What's the first one? I think it's just Walking Dead. It's Saints and Sinners, and the second one's Redemption. I can't remember. The second one's, I kind of get scared in it. And so, and I've kind of worn it out, but man, that Walking Dead game, if you guys haven't played that in VR, I was just looking for really good games in VR, and that was recommended, and I said, let's do it. And man, it's, yeah, I'll be freaking out in that game. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about them opening a real Freddy Fazbear Pizza in New Jersey?
Oh yeah, the Jersey location. Yeah, that's so for those of you who don't know, in addition to teasing 2 new games that came out, they're opening a Fazbear Pizza in New Jersey. Like a legit one. I'm assuming it won't be 100% realistic.
I was about to say that could go really bad if it's 100%.
But I'm assuming it'll be a cutesy little Chuck E. Cheese kind of place, but with the FNAF characters in it. And so I think that'll be cool. All the TikTok fans are always like, tell me you're going to be there. Tell me you're going to be there. I mean, I don't live anywhere near New Jersey, but I would make an effort to go see it. So that'd be pretty cool. I'm going to be in New Jersey for a con next month, but that's too early. So we'll
just don't go to it after dark.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think most people will.
Yeah, most people will. Yeah.
Gets dark pretty early in the winter in New Jersey.
That'd probably be their busiest hours, to be honest with you.
The sun probably goes down about 5:30 in New Jersey.
Cool. Thank you for your question. Well, I guess one last thing to kind of leave us off with, I always like to ask voice actors this, especially ones that have been a part of such a big series like Five Nights at Freddy's. Do you have any final message for your fans to kind of leave them off with as far as what Five Nights at Freddy's, the series, means to you and just the fans in general?
Wow. Well, you hit me with a hard one there.
Yeah, it's a heavy question.
I will tell you this. I've done about 60 Comic Cons now, and probably I miss the middle schoolers. I miss teaching, and the cons have filled that gap. I meet so many wonderful people, and it's all you guys. I've met half of you already today, but just sharing what makes people happy, the whole Comic-Con, the whole Five Nights at Freddy's community. I know some Five Nights at Freddy's fans can be a little toxic, so all fans can. Star Wars fans can too. But overall, FNAF fans tend to be some of the nicest people I've ever met. They're just all kind of sweet and encouraging of each other. You know, you'll see a kid wearing a cosplay that is not super well done because they're a kid. And you'll see a grown-up in a $1,000 Springtrap suit say, dude, I love your cosplay. Is that the marionette? Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're Mangle. You know, and it's everybody just lifts each other up. It's a fun community. It's a really fun community. So I love them.
Well, you do a great job, and we're super appreciative that you're here with us in West Tennessee. So everybody, please join me in giving a huge round of applause for Mr. Andy Beal.